Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among other things. Now we're taking a look at TFUEL. And TFUEL is fantastic. It's actually one of my largely requested reviews from my community, so thank you all very much for requesting this. We did cover this briefly in the coin chats yesterday for my live stream, but ultimately didn't have enough time to really get deeper in depth with that. So that's the whole point of this here, to kind of help you find a good entry point, and let's just learn some best practice. I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should always do your own research, but just know I have years of trading experience, and my goal is to help you trade for a lifetime, right, instead of for just one day. Now, we'll have signal groups moving forward to help you with that. That will be part of my premium Patreon membership. You can feel free to reference that in the description below. I will release that within a week or two. I'll notify you through Telegram, and my community will also understand that too. I got a large round of requests for that, so that's the main reason I'm doing that. Also, feel free to show your support on Patreon. Join our Telegram community. There's $25 in Bitcoin from Voyager. Link in the description below. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at TFUEL. Before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, just to get a baseline on the market so we know what's going on, see if there's any impact between the coins that we're looking at, and of course, the largest two coins out there. Right. So before we get started, though, I do like to preface that I do use TradingView. So this is TradingView application. I primarily use the 50 and the 200-day moving averages. So these two lines here, the purple is the 200-day simple moving average, and the 50-day simple moving average is this yellow line. I use those usually on the larger time frames, and then the EMA, and of course the VWAP on shorter time. I'll explain more on those here as we get closer, but for right now, this is Bitcoin 4-hour chart. So looking at the 4-hour chart here for Bitcoin, what I want to note is the fact that we're still under the 50-day moving average. We have been for roughly about 2 days now, ever since we had that recent China candle, and of course, prior to that, the Elon tweet. These things impacted Bitcoin apparently enough to reduce the price by a decent margin, and the price is pretty much going sideways here now. But keep in mind that we do have a major resistance at about 42,000, maybe 40,000 as well as a support at 30,000. The 200-day moving average is quickly approaching, so there's a strong likelihood that the price will intersect with the 200-day moving average, probably, I would say, here within the next week or two, depending on the price action. If the price goes up, it'll be a lot sooner, but if the price stays sideways like it is, then they take maybe quicker. But either way you look at it, the 200-day moving average is also a major resistance level, and it has been for quite some time. That is essentially the state of Bitcoin right now. So neither good nor bad, just kind of sideways right now, which is allowing for a lot of other altcoins to slowly increase based on the simple fact that the actual Bitcoin, when Bitcoin consolidates, some of the better altcoins are the ones that tend to increase. There's something to note there. But that being said, that's kind of where we're at there for Bitcoin. Let's go and take a look at Ethereum next. Very similar scenario for Ethereum. Only difference is, as per usual, Ethereum is doing progressively better than Bitcoin. In other words, it's similar in the sense that it's going sideways still, but it's also trying to come back up here. Right? We see this nice W pattern here. That does mean that we're likely to approach and test the $2,900 resistance line, which has been tested almost 10 times. I feel as if it's going to break through pretty strong and then see if it can approach the 200-day moving average at roughly about 3,000. So just something to note, again, big picture here, Ethereum is always the go-to coin for Bitcoin goes consolidation periods. Then Ethereum tends to ramp up. It did this really strong in the past, but with all the beatdowns, so to speak, financially, we've seen the price actually decrease. A lot of other coins like Theta, XRP, Theta even, all taking a lot of market capitalization when Bitcoin's not. So I foresee some really nice altcoin movements here in the near future. Based on that sentiment alone, at least we'll see the good altcoins doing much better than Bitcoin. So pay attention to the variance there. Always look at Bitcoin and see how the coin that you're investing in. A lot of them are very synonymous, essentially the same movement, but a few of them will be a large increase contrary. And Ethereum is one of them. It's not large, but it is marginal, and it will continue to increase if we pay attention. That is kind of what we're looking at there for Ethereum. Now let's look at TFUEL, see what's going on here. I'd like to look at the 1-day chart first before we get started. Just to kind of preface, we are over 70 on the RSI, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to come right back down. It just means we got to pay close attention to the price action over the days and to see if it's going to continue to increase and make short periods of consolidation and let the RSI calm down a little bit, or if it's just going to keep pushing really hard like it's doing right now. Because a lot of times when this happens, there could be a significant retracement. So just be mindful of that. I like to exercise caution when you see these types of increases. It is nice to jump in and get some profits, but the fear of missing out is also a very powerful motivator that can seriously seriously leave us with a deficit, right? So we don't want to have that. We want to be profitable traders. So I just recommend being cautious. Seeing this price movement right now the way that it is makes sense considering its history, but I do feel like it's not going to continue past its previous all-time high of 0.57, basically 57 cents. Again, this is just speculation at this point. I haven't looked in the shorter time frames yet. The 1-day chart, I kind of see that it has some really good movement, but it's a lot of movement in just a short amount of time. Okay? Just be aware of that. So looking at the 200-day moving average, we've got a worked as a support level, of course, but only one time, not really much weight there. Great news is the 50-day moving average is working as a support level. So we should see if the price were to come back down, likely bounce off of the 50-day. Again, I prefer the 4-hour chart for scenarios like this. In other words, when we look at the moving averages, I think the 4-hour chart is the most impactful. This works very well for me personally. Let's go ahead and take a look at that and see how the moving averages. As you can see, look at a little bit tighter, closer movement here for the 50. So the 50-day moving average is working as a pretty strong support. There are resistance and now a support level. You see it came up and bounced off, needs to bounce. So we're likely to see this continue here moving forward, but just note that the 50-day moving average will get tested in the future. And when it does, pay attention to it if it stays above or below, because it seems to be pretty consistent. When it comes below, it stays below. And when it jumps above, it stays above. Kind of a fairly reliable support and resistance line. 200 as well, it's just a little bit slower. But big picture, just so you know as well, the industry leaders are the ones that are actually controlling the market, right? So we likely see this because of whales. Well, the whales are using the 50 and the 200-day moving average. They're also using a few other indicators too, like Ochimoku, possibly even the VWAP and the EMA lines on shorter time frames. So just keep in mind that these indicators are very beneficial. The reason why we use this is because they use it and we have to get on board with what they're doing. Can't try to create our own story here. We need to make sure that we jump onto the same boat essentially, or whatever analogy you want to pick. Got to get on the same track. What they're doing, we got to get on top. A really good trader will understand what they're doing and how to get on board. Okay. So that is kind of what we're looking at for the 4-hour chart. Bear in mind the RSI is just peaking up over 70 again. I do want to note, kind of just to look at this here so you see, again, RSI, you never use it alone. But you can see here what's happened so far. Look at this RSI here. See it ramped up right about here. Sold off, came right back up. That goes to show that even though the RSI went up over 70 and came down, that the bulls are still inverted. And we'll look at a shorter time frame too on the 15 or the 1-minute chart to kind of see a little bit more clearly what the EMA lines are telling us. But simply put, RSI over 70 does not mean it's going to retrace back down, but it is likely an option, right? So there's almost always some type of retracement, whether or not it's significant or smaller. It's just something to note and pay attention to. But it does appear that, based on these metrics here, bulls are in very good control right now. And the only direction right now is essentially up at the moment. Let's see what the 15 tells us. Wow, yeah, that's some pretty good price action there. So in roughly 1 hour, seen almost a 10% growth. So that's quite a lot. It's definitely more than you'd expect in this kind of climate, considering Bitcoin is still going sideways. And if I'm not mistaken, too, is when I did my coin chats yesterday for my live stream, we actually had talked about this and reviewed this. Apparently, there is some fundamentals going on with Theta. I honestly didn't look into it. I'm more of a technical indicator. I really prefer the technical charts personally, but I know that fundamentals are really important to understand, of course. So if I ever do a long-term investment, then I'm going to use that. If you do plan to invest in Theta or Theta Fuel, I would recommend you look at that a little bit further. There was some type of catalyst recently that's causing the price action. But if you can see here, higher highs as well as higher lows. So these are all very, very good signs. The higher highs and the lows are slowly getting higher. So we want to pay attention to those things, right? Those things are important to know, important to understand, as they really just tell us who's in control. When we see lower lows and lower highs, bears are in control, higher highs, higher lows, bulls are in control, right? Now, how much longer this will last, it's hard to really specifically understand, right? Keep in mind, we've got some support and resistance levels we want to indicate. So let me go ahead and zoom out here. See if we can, probably gonna have to go. I want to mark, what was it? Was it 57 cents? We can round up and say 57. Yeah, 57 cents was essentially previous resistance. We want to be mindful of how the price action responds to this. Now, it may or may not break through, but the key takeaway here is that that is a major resistance level. Not much else in between there because it's making essentially newer highs, right? So in the last month, it hasn't seen this type of height. So that's a good sign for the big picture, but again, we want to be mindful and careful. So let's look at the 15 again, and what we do first. If you're new to the channel, I use the EMA 15. It's the exponential moving average. That is this red line here. And what I typically do is just disable the moving averages, the 50 and the 200, because they're simple moving averages. It's effective on short time frames, and I just get rid of them to limit the noise. Because you don't want to have a ton of indicators. You want to have maybe 1, 2, or 3 for each time frame. So that way you can get a little bit more articulate and less confused with information. Okay, so this red line is the EMA line. That's the exponential moving average, pretty much telling us if the bulls are in control and so if the bears are in control, right? It's very similar to a move at the MACD, right? So moving average convergence divergence, the MACD will have 12 and the 26 exponential moving averages alongside each other, and when they converge, that tells us it's a buy signal. Well, this is very similar in a lot of ways, only on the shorter time frame. It really helps us understand that. Hey, look at this right here. Bulls are in control. Slight period of consolidation. Bulls are in control. So it's important to note because when you take entry, you always want to take entry when the price is over EMA. Now, a lot of industry standards are going to be the 9 and the 20. I use the 15 because it's a blended average and I prefer one indicator instead of two. That's the reason why you see the 15. And then, of course, the other indicator is the VWAP. This is a volume weighted average price. If you're new to the channel or just new to VWAP in general, it should be your new best friend, okay? The reason why is because it takes the volume in the last 24 hours and expresses it as a price. So for day trading, 15 minutes or less, it works effectively, very, very well. You never want to use it on larger time frames because it doesn't make any sense because it has to be a smaller time frame to really see the true benefit because it's only a 24-hour period, not like a 14 days for the RSI or a period longer for indicators. Well, it must be used on shorter time frames, but the reason why it's helpful is it works as a continuous support and resistance level. So in situations like this, when we don't, we're making higher highs, we're not quite sure where the support lines are, we can't draw our own support lines, minus 57 cents. The VWAP is essentially the reliable indicator there. Now here's what's great about the VWAP is it has a standard deviation line. So this green line above and green line below is essentially where it should go without retrace. In other words, you see anytime it steps outside of that, it's going to retrace back down. It's because the price got too high away from the volume weighted average price and essentially came back down. And when the price right now, like for example, the price right now is at 49 cents for the VWAP. VWAP is telling us the price should be at 40. Whereas the current price action is way up here at 54 cents. Now that is a variance of over 10%. Anytime we see that variance of over 10%, it tells me that we're going to see some type of retracement. Now, it may not be significant, it may just be a little bit, but do you see how the lines are above the standard deviation here? See how it came up above and came back down? You always want to pay attention to that because anytime you see that difference in price from the volume weighted average price, then there's likely going to be some kind of turnaround. With that, in conjunction with the RSI being significantly overbought at about 2, I think there's no doubt that the price will either consolidate sideways and or So just be mindful of that. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to trade significant. In fact, it's actually making higher highs right now. But that's just something to note. Now let's look at the 1 minute chart because this is essentially telling us more specifically what's going on. Because with this kind of price action, when the price goes up so fast, so quick, you have to go to a really short time frame. So 1 minute is essentially the lowest. As you can see, the price is staying pretty consistent over the EMA. Short period consolidation here, lost EMA, still over VWAP, so we're good. Price continues to increase. You can see here higher highs. You see how the price is bouncing off the EMA line? That's telling us the bulls are in complete control. This is one of those bull runs you want to try to be part of. But again, as soon as you start seeing signs of a reversal, like for example, the RSI coming back down under 70 is a good sign to maybe trim some profit or just essentially see how it responds. Because actually, you know what's interesting here? We might actually see to test this here soon. There is that resistance level, 57 cents. So this is one thing you want to be mindful of. If the price continues to come up, I'm not sure we're going to have enough time in this review to see it happen. But if it comes up, tests the 57-cent range, then you want to be mindful of how the fact that it will likely reject and come back. It may break through above and push to even greater heights, but I think that's less likely just based on the fact that it's previous resistance. Typically, when you have an all-time high, the all-time high is tested a few times before. I'd venture to guess that the price is overextended right now. All the indicators are telling me that it's extremely overbought, and that there's likely going to be either a retracement and or just more of a horizontal consolidation pattern soon. So just be mindful of that. So I mean, I would say my prediction here for the next 24 hours is for the price action to likely test and reject the 57-cent range and to come back down. Might be a decent shorting opportunity. It's hard to say specifically. Again, this is where you'd want to do further research on the fundamentals and see why it's pushing so hard. I know there's something outside of just the technicals that I'm not seeing. Again, this is just a technical analysis, so that's the reason why I don't look at the fundamentals. And thank you to my community for reaching out and asking me to go ahead and cover this because this is obviously taking off and it's a good thing to pay attention to. So I will likely try to include that in my signal group moving forward. Okay. So pay attention, see if this is a good option here. And I want to thank you again for joining me here. Future reference, I am doing live streams on the weekends now. You can catch my live stream from yesterday. I had some technical difficulties with the microphone. I worked on that. I believe I fixed it. So I do apologize for that. Moving forward as well, I'm creating a signal group essentially. I'm just ironing out the details right now, but within about a week or two, I'll have that up and live. That'll be a premium option through Patreon account to ensure that you get the right signals at the right time. You can essentially follow my trading pattern, trading styles, so that way, hopefully, you can be more profitable because I'm fairly consistent, and I want to make sure to help. That's an option for you. So be careful, be safe. Let's see what happens. We may test the 57-cent range. Hope it happens and breaks right. But if not, I'll hate to say I told you so. All right, well, thanks again. We'll hope to see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.